But the reality is this wasn't a Maryland father. This was a El Salvadorian man who was illegally in this country, who was affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence to that.
Let's set the record straight about who this person is.
There's no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, he's an illegal immigrant. He was here illegally with deportation orders in 2019. What part of that do you not understand?
I understand the story very well.
All right, so that was last night on NewsNation, and that was anchor Hena Doba, and they had a fiery confrontation with White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Harrison Fields. So the two were going back and forth over the allegations that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13. So Cenk, we have a lot more of that NewsNation interview to show the audience, but how do you think this is gonna go? It already seems very contentious.
Yeah, I appreciated that, a little bit of a throwdown there from the anchor not taking the lies of the Republican. And they're huge lies. Tons of Republicans and right-wing hosts are pushing out these lies. So we're gonna show you the reality here. We're gonna show you the receipts, and we're gonna show you what this guy actually is and what the courts have decided, and we'll show you court documents about it, actual receipts here instead of just nonsense jibber jabber from the other side. So find out for yourself, but let's watch a little bit more and let's see all the details and facts here. Then I'll weigh in more.
Right, so we definitely have those receipts and we will get to them. But yeah, first let's go to the clips. We have two clips to show you from that NewsNation confrontation. In this first clip, Doba and Fields are battling over whether or not Abrego Garcia was actually affiliated with or a part of MS-13. Take a look.
But the reality is this wasn't a Maryland father. This was a El Salvadorian man who was illegally in this country, who was affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence to that.
Let's set the record straight about who this person is.
There's no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, the Department of Justice has come out and said that he has gang affiliation. So instead of defending this gentleman, talk about who he actually is and talk about the risk in keeping illegal criminals in this country. This is exactly what President Trump was elected to do, to return these people back to their home countries, and that's what he did.
We're not defending him. I'm going to reiterate that is unsubstantiated. There is no evidence of him being a gang member. He is married to a US citizen, and he was in this country legally. Okay, but we don't know if he was
being
actually
married does not make you not a gang member.
There's no evidence. We're going to move on. There's no evidence that he was a gang member, and I want to reiterate that to our viewers.
The Department of Justice came out and said there was credible evidence that he was a member or affiliated.
You said he's a gang member, and he wasn't legally allowed to be here, which again, he was legally allowed to be here. And he is married to an American citizen. You can hold court for
him all you want. He's no longer in this country.
All right.
One person, the Americans are safer because of it.
All right, so Doba and Fields then fought over Abrego Garcia's immigration status more specifically, so let's look at that.
So right now, the White House seems to be doing nothing about getting him back, and that's fine. I'm going to move on.
He's an illegal immigrant. He was here illegally with deportation orders in 2019. What part of that do you not understand?
I understand the story very well, and I'm going to stop going back and forth with you on this, but I will say, again, he had every right to be in this country. Is there any scenario under which
he was an illegal immigrant.
We're going to move on this.
No, I will not let you go forward.
Okay.
He was an illegal alien in this country with a deportation order in 2019. He is an El Salvadorian citizen. If you are not a citizen of the United States of America here illegally, there are grounds to deport you, in which happened recently.
This again, unsubstantiated. Those are not the facts, but I will move on.
Okay, so here is what has actually been stated in court. Abrego Garcia did grow up in El Salvador's capital city, according to the court documents. His family had been targeted and harassed by a local gang there named Barrio 18. So here's some reporting from AP News on that. When Abrego Garcia was 12, the gang threatened to take him away until his father paid them all of the money that they wanted. The family moved 10 minutes away, but the gang threatened to rape and kill Abrego Garcia's sisters, court records state. So per the court records, Abrego Garcia's family could not go to the authorities because of police corruption, which does track. So the family tried to flee to Guatemala instead, but even after moving to Guatemala, they were still tortured and tormented by the gang. So Abrego Garcia fled to the US illegally around 2011. the year he turned 16, according to documents filed in his immigration case. And in 2019, he went to a Home Depot looking for work when he was arrested by county police, according to court filings. Detectives asked if he was a gang member. So after explaining that he wasn't, he was detained by ICE. And that brings us up there. So Abrego Garcia asked to be released and told an immigration judge that he would seek asylum. So this is more reporting. US ICE, however, alleged that he was a certified gang member based on information that came from a confidential informant used by county police, records state. According to Abrego Garcia's attorneys in his current case, the criminal informant had alleged that Abrego Garcia belonged to an MS-13 chapter in New York where he has never lived. The information was enough for an immigration judge in 2019 to keep Abrego Garcia in jail as his immigration case continued, court records state. The judge said the informant was proven and reliable and had verified his gang membership and rank. All right, so in October of 2019 now, an immigrant judge in Maryland granted Abrego Garcia protection from getting deported to El Salvador due to a well-founded fear of gang persecution. However, his asylum request was denied by that same judge because he did not file it quickly enough. Abrego Garcia was then released from custody and ICE did not appeal. So here's more reporting. Abrego Garcia checked in with ICE yearly while the Department of Homeland Security issued him a work permit. His attorney said in the filings, he joined a union and was employed full-time as a sheet metal apprentice. So he was never charged with or convicted of being a member of MS-13. At no point was he convicted of this. This year, District Judge Paula Zinnes wrote in a court filing that the quote unquote evidence against Abrego Garcia consisted of nothing more than his Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie and a vague, uncorroborated allegation from a confidential informant claiming he belonged to MS-13's Western clique in New York, again, a place he has never lived. And yet, this is what our Vice President, JD Vance, posted this morning on social media. He said the entire American media and left-wing industrial complex has decided that the most important issue today is that the Trump administration deported an MS-13 gang member and illegal alien, but that's not true. It's just not true, even though it's on Truth Social. So in a Truth Social post last night, President Donald Trump called Abrego Garcia an MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist from El Salvador. So now the question is, what are the Democrats doing about all of this? It's kind of interesting, actually. A group of Democratic senators led by Senator Chris Van Hollen could actually be traveling to El Salvador later this week if Abrego Garcia is not released by then. Van Hollen wants to check on Abrego Garcia's condition and discuss his release with the government of El Salvador. Also, Representative Maxwell Frost pledged his support as well, and he stated that he would attempt to bring along other members of the House. And speaking of the House, last night, Jen Psaki asked Hakeem Jeffries what Democrats can do to help bring Abrego Garcia home. And here is Jeffries' answer.
What, if any, power, for people who are watching at home, do you have? What power do you have and other Democratic members to compel, push the government to bring him home?
Well, we have the power to shape public sentiment, and at the end of the day, making sure that public sentiment in this case understands that the treatment of Mr. Abrego Garcia, is unconscionable, unacceptable, and un-American. And if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Well, that is a lackluster response from Jeffries. If our Congress people are just trying to sway public opinion, they're not doing a whole lot. They're the ones who actually have the power to do something. Whereas, people like us, we're the ones who are trying to sway public opinion in one way or another. And everybody on social media and people just talking to their relatives. That's how those things happen. We need a little bit more from our Congress people. But Cenk, what's crazy to me is that instead of just admitting that they're poorly executed plan inevitably resulted in the wrongful deportation of this man. Instead, they're just going to criminalize him even further and demonize him in the press and say, no, we were right. This man wasn't supposed to be here in the first place, even though, again, as we just showed our audience, the evidence does not support that.
Yeah, there's two reasons why the Republicans are doing this. There's so much to discuss here. So first reason is Trump's insecurities. So if he made the decision to send this guy down there without due process and without checking, then it must be the correct decision. And we don't care that he's innocent, and we don't care what the courts say. We're just gonna keep him down there in the dungeon. Ha ha! Okay, that's Trump 101. Number two is they pick these fights, but they need the left wing to fight back. And if you're just deporting criminal undocumented folks, there isn't going to be much pushback because most of the country agrees with that, right? So that they need something that creates controversy. So in order to create controversy, they purposely lie, therefore getting the left wing, et cetera, to fight back. And then they pretend to their own voters, oh my God, you see that? The left wing loves these undocumented criminals, and they want to keep the rapists and the murderers and the MS-13 gang guys. You see that? And unfortunately, this is an enormous part of the puzzle. Right-wing media in general helps them. And they lie along with the Republican politicians and the Trump administration so that their audience thinks the guy really is MS-13 and must have committed some grave offense because they saw JD Vance tweet about it. They saw Donald Trump say it. Now all their right-wing media agrees, well then it must be true. And by the way, guys, I unlike a lot of folks on the left, I don't blame those viewers, voters, et cetera, because they were lied to and they don't know that they're being lied to. Some of them do know, and some of them will say on social media, like, I don't care, I don't care. And he's not a citizen, just do whatever you want with him. I don't, send him to a dungeon, torture him. I don't care, he did something, he didn't do something, he was a criminal, he's not in a gang, I don't care, right? And some say as long as he's undocumented, which is true, then again, then he deserves every fate that he gets, and he's afraid that he was going to be attacked, possibly killed by the gangs in El Salvador that are in that prison. That might kill him. That's why our judges said don't send him to El Salvador, right? And they're like, yeah, but as long as he was undocumented, I don't care. So that portion exists. But a bigger portion got lied to and has no idea what the reality is. Look, I know that Yaz just broke it down for you guys, but I want to summarize real quick. So if you say he's undocumented, no problem, he was undocumented, okay, and you saw the reasons why. If you say that he was part of MS-13, how much clearer does it have to be that he wasn't? So some informant, obviously lying, said, oh yeah, he was an MS-13 in New York. He hasn't been to New York. He lives in Maryland, has nothing to do with New York. An informant saying that he was an MS-13 to get a lenient sentence or whatever reason that he said it so that he could skate and an innocent guy can go to jail or be deported. Wow, that would be shocking. But again, if you saw it in a court paper, because they copy and pasted it, an earlier court hearing where someone alleged that he was MS-13, I get why you were misled, I get it. But we're showing you here, later court proceedings in 2019, showed that he was not an MS-13, that was a made up allegation. And in fact, he was legitimately scared to death that if he's sent back to El Salvador, that those gangs are the ones that would actually threaten him and potentially kill him. And if you say, oh, I don't care, now that I know the truth, I still don't care. Well, I'm not gonna be able to convince you. And so you're a person who just doesn't care about others and doesn't have any empathy, et cetera, and I can't ever reach you. Because the minute you view someone in a different category, then you think the worst things in the world can happen to them. They can get slaughtered by those same MS-13 gang that I claim that I hate. As long as it's not me, I don't identify with the guy, I don't care. Okay, that group, you can't ever get them to say, yeah, we should all treat all human beings the same way, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're in the larger group, look, I don't know that a lot of you are gonna see this video, or you're gonna see our posts on social media, et cetera. But if you're in that group, you should ask the right-wing media and your politicians. And we do it here on the Young Turks, we do it to Democrats all the time. We get tons of flack for it, right? But if you're on the right wing and you're honest, you should ask them, hey, why did you tell me he was an MS-13 when later courts thought that was garbage and didn't think he was an MS-13? And that guy you saw, Harrison Fields, the White House principal deputy press secretary that we showed you in that NewsNation clip, he said that in 2019, there were deportation orders against him. when in reality, it was the exact opposite. In 2019, the court ruled you cannot deport him. So he's 100% lying. And see, unlike a viewer or a voter that might have heard it somewhere online or in media or whatever, that guy knows. He knows for sure. And JD Vance knows for sure that they're lying. But hey, we want to trick people into thinking that the left wing loves criminals, loves MS-13 gang, and we don't mind lying. And then JD Vance said it about the cats and dogs. And when challenged in an interview, he said, look, that might not be true. So something, words along those lines, but I had to bring your attention to this other issue about gangs in Ohio and undocumented people, etc. So basically admitted, yeah, we lie in order to get attention to a cause that we want. But you don't need to lie. You already are, that deporting undocumented criminals who are part of MS-13 is already intensely popular. In fact, if you're in the right wing, again, you should be pissed about this because it's taking that popular policy and now making it unpopular. Because people are like, why are we sending innocent people to El Salvador? Why are we sending innocent people to dungeons? And why, by the way, more important than any of that is, why are you ignoring court orders? The court said, do not deport this guy. Now the courts have ruled, earlier courts said don't deport him, so bring him back. Supreme Court says 9-0. Clarence Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, all those guys said the administration must facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. They were unanimous because it was super clear that the president must listen to the courts. And here, the Trump administration comes out and goes, we don't care about the US courts. We don't care about the Constitution. We don't care what's true and not true. All we want to do is lie and demagogue and get not only everybody to hate undocumented folks, whether they're criminals or not criminals, whether they're in a gang or not in a gang or perfectly innocent, and whether they've integrated into society, married an American citizen, have American kids, and said, we don't care about anything. All we want to do is get you to hate. Hate the immigrants, hate the undocumented immigrants, smear them all. And if we got to lie every single day to make that happen, they have no problems with it. And I find that disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And I hate it when our side does things that are demonstrably not true. Joe Biden is young and dynamic. And we call that out. Is there any, and by the way, so look, a lot of right-wing voters will think whatever they think, they might or might not get this information. But if you're in right-wing media and you're still lying about how courts ordered him deported when they ordered the exact opposite, all right, brothers and sisters, that you got to live with yourself, but now you know at least for sure that you're a giant liar for Donald Trump and you're doing it to demagogue and spread hatred. So have I been clear enough in getting the message out? And to the last point, is about Hakeem Jeffries and their response. I like Chris Van Hollen's response, that's strong, right? Hakeem Jeffries, we will get the word out. Well, will you? Because that sounded super strong. It sounded like you were really animated about it. Like the guy barely has a pulse. Do something, for Christ's sake. You've got a tiny modicum of power. Try to figure out, at least put some thought into how do I strategize to make a difference here. But with Democratic leadership strategizing, it's way too high a bar, apparently. Back to you, Yas.
Yeah. Hakeem Jeffries definitely leaves a lot to be desired, to the point where it's like, how did you even elevate to the position that you're in right now? If that's the best he can give us, we need somebody else. Like the future, if he's the future of the Democratic Party, it's looking a little bit dim and dull already, and that's not very encouraging. But to your point, Cenk, about not blaming the people who support these types of moves from the administration, I do get what you're saying, and the only reason that I do have a small modicum of grace for them is exactly what you said. They're being lied to by people that they, for some reason, trust. And I say it's a small amount of grace because at some point, ignorance has to be a choice. And these people who are choosing ignorance are voting for policies and politicians based on these beliefs that they hold, which are based on things that they don't understand. And then other people are suffering for these votes that they're casting. But right-wing media strategy is the same that it has been for so long. They just scare the public with scary words like gangs and terrorists because fearful people don't care about things like due process. There's no time for any of that stuff when danger is lurking around every corner, when people's lives are being threatened, when gangs are running rampant, or when there's terrorism happening, which is what they're being told. And what's ironic about that is that the most recent incident of terrorism that I've heard of came from that MAGA guy who torched Governor Shapiro's house. I know that's another story, but it is a little ironic. But then there is that other aspect to all of this that you mentioned at the end, Cenk. The Supreme Court unanimously, which never happens, ruled that we need to get this guy back. But now the Trump administration and right-wing media are acting like it's all just diplomatically impossible for the United States to take on this president from El Salvador, as if we haven't done that before. Let's be real. We know our nation's history. We have taken on entire governments before. If we wanted to negotiate a deal to get this guy back from El Salvador, we know we can do that, right? No one is doubting that the United States can't get somebody back from El Salvador if it really wanted to, but they're acting like, oh, too bad, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, so last two things here. First, Crazy Like a Fox on TYT.com, one of our members on TYT.com, it made a good point here, and it goes along the lines of what I was gonna say, but he has a specific example. He said that misframing is exactly what the Democrats did with Gaza protesters. And that's a great point. And I was gonna use a different example, which is, as part of the reason why I give some in the right wing grace when they've heard the wrong information is because how many of our brothers and sisters on the left heard the wrong information from MSNBC and others in the media that Joe Biden was the best possible candidate for Donald Trump. So we were to go against Donald Trump, and that he had no mental decline issues at all, that it was a conspiracy theory, and that it was perfectly young and dynamic behind the scenes when we couldn't see it. They got really good people to believe something that was so obviously not true. I mean, Biden couldn't finish sentences. He's mumbling and wandering around, shaking hands with invisible people, talking about how his uncle was eaten by cannibals. And all of the media on the left were gaslighting people to no end. No, not only is he a good candidate to go against Trump, he was the very best candidate to go against Trump. And the reason I was against that is because, not just because I have eyes and ears, but he wasn't the best candidate to go against Trump. If he went against Trump, we were guaranteed a loss. And those good people were being lied to. And ironically, it was helping Trump because they were gonna keep a senile man in the race, right? So all those people who didn't believe that Biden was senile, who didn't believe that there was anything wrong with him, they thought he was a great dynamic candidate before the debate, right? They're not bad people. They just got lied to, okay? So in this, you could make a similar argument, not an identical argument, but a similar one for people who are lied to in the right wing. And to our members' point here, on Gaza, did Biden and the Democrats do any better? Bernie did and others did, but overall the Biden administration was like, oh, those protesters, how dare they? They're terrible. And now Trump has gone further and he's arresting and deporting them. But Biden helped their propaganda and totally lied about who those protesters were. So I'm tired of both sides lying. You gotta ask better, not just of your politicians, but also of your media. So, and that's what's gotten us into this division. And now the last thing is the depressing part here. We got it in the live chat again. I was curious about it, if you guys got, more pessimistic about it overnight. But we had asked this question yesterday in the live chat. Will Kilmar Abrego Garcia be returned to the US? And only 28% said yes yesterday. Let's see if we can see it in the live chat. Obviously it shows live at 6 o'clock Eastern. Everybody check it out when you can and participate, be one of our members or not. So right around the same numbers, 30 to 70. Man, if they never return that guy, somebody else wrote in, look, there's some chance that, Captain Logos wrote in, Abrego Garcia is probably dead. And I don't know if he is or not. That's why Senator Van Hollen from Maryland is going down to check on him. But remember, he was worried that those gangs were gonna kill him. That prison is full of MS-13. So we gotta get this guy back. And anyone who is in the Trump camp that already knows he's innocent and doesn't mind him dying there, well, those are the people you should have enormous disdain for. It's the height of immorality. It's beyond gross what they're doing to that guy just to protect Donald Trump's feelings and because lying is literally part of their strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think whenever it comes down to it, this is just, it should not have happened in the first place, right? And this is what happens whenever you suspend processes like due process, right? These things are in place for a reason. They are applicable to everybody who is here in this country. We don't know. The reason why we're having this debate as to whether or not he was actually a member of MS-13 is because there was no due process. There was nothing that determined whether or not he was. He was just sent back. And now we're in a situation where we can't really get ourselves out of the situation that we've got ourselves into in the first place. All of this was so completely unnecessary. And I do want to say, for El Salvador, they have had a long history of gang violence and crime. And then Bukele came in there, and he's had a lot of human rights violations called out against him from the international watchdogs, right? For years, this has been going on. So this is nothing new. And a lot of people down there, however, and I randomly know a lot of El Salvadorian people. There's a lot here in Houston. One of my best friends is El Salvadorian, so I get some insight there. But and also just from reading reports online, a lot of people defend Bukele and all of this imprisonment of all these people who he says are gang members, also without due process, because they say, it's a little bit nicer here now in El Salvador. It's a little bit safer here in El Salvador. So that is also an argument that we're hearing now from anchors on places like Fox News that, it's better there now because all these people are in jail.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.